you wouldn't mind typing your name and where you're joining from into the chat, directing it to all panelists and attendees, just say hi. Here in Evanston, it was snowing a minute ago.
Wow.
It didn't stick. It's not sticking. It's just like threatening. I don't know if it's nice where you are or nasty, but I'm just delighted that we can all be here together today. Hi, Anne from McKeesport. Deanne and Takara are joining us from Michigan. Hi, Lisa from South Jersey. Today we're here with Deanne Surles and Takara Montgomery to talk about parenting a child with autism during the pandemic. And this is a topic that I think the whole issue of children who've been diagnosed with a special need and how this pandemic is weighing on them and how it's weighing on their parents and how schooling has changed. All very, very, very important issues. So
Mhm.
we're delighted to have Deanna and Takara here to be able to share with us, and they'll introduce themselves a little bit later. Welcome, Deanne. Welcome, Takara. And before we turn it over to them, I'd like to remind everybody about the ways to engage. So we ask that if you aren't talking, you put your phone on mute. When you're ready to comment, if you want to say something verbally, raise your hand and we'll unmute you. Then you'll need to unmute yourself to be heard. We suspect that there are people in the audience who have experience with this topic, and we would really are encouraging people to raise your hand if you want to say something. I know that there will be questions, there will be experiences. And again, you're always welcome to use the chat, directing it to all panelists and attendees. You have to, usually it's like it's the second one on the drop-down menu. So you have to actually make an affirmative choice to get that there. So you address it to all panelists and attendees, and then you can use the chat to ask a question, say a statement, respond to one another. So that housekeeping bit out of the way. The second thing I'm here to say is that we have agreements at Be Strong Families whenever we do anything. And this is in recognition that we're co-creating this safe space for conversation together. So we ask that you speak from your own experience, that you treat other people the way you want to be treated, and that you just are here now with no multitasking. So if you agree to these agreements, please do like some of our regulars, Mary and Anna and Vanetta and Yvonne, and just say, I agree in the chat. Stephen agrees. That's awesome. And again, before we get started, we'd like to know a little bit about what brings you here today. So if you are currently parenting, or if you have a child with special need, who's been diagnosed with a special need, such as autism, if you could just kind of put a Y in the chat, and if you don't, if you would put an N in the chat. Turquoise says Y. Love that name, Turquoise. Sarah N, Yvonne Y, Kathleen N. About 50-50, but only 4 of you have responded. Y, N, 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 N. All panelists and attendees for the chat. Y. So we forgot to make a poll. So this is our on the spot poll. And I'd say we have about 30% of the people who've responded do have a child with diagnosed with a special need. I'm not sure if it's autism or not. And other people do not. I wonder also if how many of you are working with families with children with special needs, because a lot of the people who join us on our calls are people who are providing direct services to families, or they could be family workers or liaisons working with children with special needs, Carla says. Yeah, or working with children. That's true too. How many people are working with children with special needs? So you're coming at it from that perspective, is that you're interested in, yeah. Awesome. I work with families of children. Sarah says she works with families with children with special needs. So I think that I expected that we have a smaller than normal, but very passionate audience for whom this topic is really important. And I'm delighted to turn it over. I want to thank Deanne. Some of you may have been here when Deanne was doing a couple of webinars on family literacy, yeah? Earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a volunteer and part of the community, and we're very grateful. And she will introduce you to herself and to Ms. Montgomery. So thank you very much. And I'm going to go.
Thanks, Kathy. Hello, everyone. And I see a name, Turquoise Brown. Can you let me know if you're from Michigan? Because for some reason, that name just sounds so familiar. And I feel like if you're not from Michigan, maybe you participated in a past presentation that I did. If not, then it's just weird to know two people with the same name. But my name is Deanne Surles, as Kathy mentioned. I am a literacy program manager, which means I run a family literacy program where we have adult learners who are deciding to return to school and want to bring their children along with them. And so, one of the presentations that I did over the summer was really to go into more detail and about what a family literacy program looks like and how it is we assist families. And I'm also a family educator. So I am so happy to be back with Be Strong Families again today to have this wonderful conversation with my friend Takara Montgomery. And I will actually allow Takara to introduce herself because she is a dynamic woman. And Takara, just go ahead and share a few words about yourself for us today.
Well, my name is Takara. Hello, I'm so happy to be here, Be Strong Families today, and to be invited by such a phenomenal activist and just a wonderful woman overall, Deanne. Thank you so much for inviting me. And basically, I'm a licensed counselor who's had experience on both sides of life with a child who has autism. My son, my 13-year-old son, Kyron Montgomery, has autism. And on the other side of it, I actually assist with parents and children who need help and direction with special needs. So I'm right there with my sleeves. And when I say sleeves rolled up, ready to dive in, that's what I do on a daily basis. So basically, that's what I do. And I like to come on places like this that have the platforms to kind of, network and share with what are we doing and what changes can be made. So I definitely want to be a part of that. And I'm happy that Deanne typically invites me on these journeys so that we can share and just say there is light at the end of these tunnels and just be a part of that. So I'm excited to be here and thank you.
All right. Yes. So for those of us who are those of you who are joining us today, please, as Kathy mentioned, be active in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions at all or any comments during this conversation. We would love to engage with you, whether you are a parent yourself of a child who has been diagnosed with a special need, or I think a couple of you mentioned that you may work with children who have been diagnosed. So use this opportunity to engage, ask questions, make comments. We would love to just know that what we're saying is making an impact and is reaching you. So we will discuss the challenges and opportunities that COVID-19 has presented for Takara and her son, Kyron, who has been diagnosed with autism. So, Takara, as we began this conversation, can you just share briefly about your son's diagnosis? Basically, how you all discovered or came to realize that he did have autism?
Absolutely. So we have, my husband and I have 5 other children. So we have 6 children in all. So we had a good compare and contrast when we had Kyron. And I noticed milestones that children typically conquer at certain ages. He was not anywhere near completion or anywhere near those milestones. And so that kind of raised an eyebrow for me. And I started to kind of watch Kyron a little closer. And we saw that he liked to be alone. We saw that he had sensory issues. He would rather be put down than picked up. He wasn't doing that children do. He had a flat affect. The facial expressions weren't there. So we took him into here in Michigan to early on where they support the diagnoses and help you with the process of diagnosing your child. And from there, we found out, yes, Kyron did have autism. So he was diagnosed by the age of 13. I'm sorry, 13 months. 13 months. So he was able to get the support he needed early on, which I really appreciated that. And from then it's been a journey, just trying to find out, okay, what does he need? You know, what do we do? What supports are there? And now he's a prepubescent teenager. So we're learning what that looks like and, you know, how that looks. So every stage has been interesting. And for any parent that has did the transition from age 1 to 12, and now you have a teen and special needs, that's a whole different ball game. So we're just kind of learning and trying to evolve and gather resources so that we can be a support for him.
Okay, thank you. So since we're in this, those of us who are in Michigan, right? We are still in this pandemic world where all of us are in the pandemic, but in Michigan particularly, we are still closed for the most part, right? Especially in the metropolitan Detroit area. So the overwhelming majority of schools are closed at this time. I think everything shut down like the end of the second week in March. So before we get into what is going on in terms of a school day currently with Kyron, discuss what Kyron's typical school day looked like prior to the COVID-19 quarantine.
Okay, yes. Prior to COVID-19, Kyron had a pretty routine day. So we finally, after years of trial and error, we had finally got to a point where, okay, Kyron's happy. Here's his routine. He knows what to do. And he's been going to the same school for the last 6 years, seeing the same bus drivers. So things were working pretty good. So basically what his day would look like, he'd get up in the morning, he'd have his famous breakfast that he loves, peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a little toast. And he would go from there. He would dress himself, get on the bus, see the same bus drivers, and go to school and enjoy his day. He really enjoyed the ride from home to school, and he enjoyed the ride from school to home. They would always report that back. Kyron loves to ride. So after school, he knew what to do and where to put his book bag and what he was going to eat. So it was pretty much a day that we had been waiting for, or a time in life that we've been waiting for. And it was our normal. And finally here, you know, Kyron knows what to do. He's a happy camper. We're good to go. So that was pre-COVID. It was it became the good life.
Okay. So, and because he was at the school that he attended, were they in grades or not really in grades? How?
Right. So you're right. So some of them, I think, according to, you know, your age, they'll try to group you according to your IEP.
Right.
So, yeah. So he wasn't there with children his age and grade, but they him according to their IEP.
Okay. Sounds good. So he's, you know, going strong, enjoying school. You all have a routine. He enjoys the school experience. You have all finally found a school that was, so we can't even, we may have time to go into that a little bit later in the conversation, just how long it kind of took that journey to finally find a school. So here you are. And March comes around. And I want to say it was like March 13th, right? Here in Michigan. Everything was like, shut it down. Schools are going to be closed. So how did that change your life from like, he was going to school, everything was going great. Now he can't go to school anymore. So tell us a little bit about that.
It was like, and I don't want to create a bad visual, but it was like a hard punch to the chest, enough to take your wind away and just take you out of the loop just for a little while. And that's exactly how I felt. Like the wind was knocked out of me. And I cried. I have to be as transparent as I can. I had a good cry. When March 13th, once I really digested what was going on, I just said, all of the good stuff flashed before me and how everything was going great. And I cried. I cried for a good hour. I said, you know what? It's okay. I got to pull myself together and now figure out what everything is going to look like now. So now with the pandemic in place, with COVID in place and the new learning processes, we're still picking up pieces and trying to figure out what that looks like for Kyron. So keeping in mind that it took us years to get to the plateau we're at now, just to go backwards. So here is where our challenge is. And we still continue to try to figure out, what best is going to serve him and what is going to keep us sane as we push through so that we can be in a good enough health to be there for him. So it's been a challenge, Deanne. It's been a challenge since March 13th.
Yeah. So he's still at home, right? He's still at home. Okay, so what is the typical school day now? So now that he's learning, because he's technically still enrolled at school. So he's you're not doing like your own homeschool curriculum. He's still in his own school, but just learning virtually. So what is his school day like now?
The school day is so for the most part, we have to log him in class, and they do the best that they can to provide what that IEP states. So, just the occupational therapy, the speech therapy, trying to get everything under wraps with that. Has that been going well? Not necessarily, because Kyron is trying to figure out, why are we on a computer? Who is this asking questions? This is odd. So sometimes he takes the laptop and shuts it down. He'll just take the whole laptop, just pull it down. And I imagine saying, this is overwhelming. What exactly are you asking me to do? So with that process, that's his typical school day, but it's not normal by any means as far as us adjusting.
Right. So all of his occupational needs and those other additional supports that he was receiving while at school in person are all virtual now. So all of that personal connection that he once had with classmates and instructors, all of that has been taken away since March. Is that correct? Yeah. Since March. Okay.
They're doing the best that they can, but I also feel like it's more of a check the box at this point. So it's not really, you can't really measure how he's doing, if he's getting to one place to the next. I really think it's a check the box at this point, just to make sure that things are being done. But I think that the intimacy of it has kind of dissipated at this point, and everybody is just trying to do the best that they can in the position that they have and the tools that they have.
Yeah. General education students are struggling.
Yes.
Right. Yes. I have a teenager and I have a sixth grader. The only class that my sixth grader likes is piano. She's over it. She's, just over it. And my teen, I just don't even know at this point. I mean, we're doing the best that we can, and these are general education students. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because oftentimes, even prior to COVID, so many of our families who have children who have special needs felt invisible. So I can you probably, so many people out there probably feel like a missed. Just it's even worse at this point. So those of you who are listening, if you can relate to Takara's story, please let us know. Again, if you have any questions, just don't hesitate to ask them in the chat box. Takara, so his IEP, tell us a little bit about his IEP needs. Do you feel like his IEP needs are being addressed, or I should say, how have you ensured that his IEP needs have been addressed? That's how I asked that question. What have you done to ensure that process has continued to the best possible?
Yeah, so I think what I've learned that IEP is a tool for him to make him a better student and for him to be more productive as a citizen. Once I understood the IEP, I was able to be a better advocate for him as a mom.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing to make sure that he gets his needs addressed is I'm the occupational therapist now. I'm the speech therapist now, doing the best to support the speech therapists who've done such a great job with him over the years. Now I'm being the bridging the gap for them, making sure that the services that they put there, I'm able to translate that to Kyron the best that I know how.
Yeah.
Am I a speech therapist? Absolutely not. But does he have awesome speech therapists? Yes, he does. So I know that what they're giving him to reinforce him moving to the next milestone is going to work. So that makes me more hands-on. I think somebody put that in the chat too.
Yeah.
You, as a parent, it puts you more hands-on and lets you know exactly what's going on, what the curriculum looks like, and gives you like that right microscopic view of what is going on while he's in school.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it's worked that way. And I do feel overall, if I continue to be the warrior in pushing this and propelling this forward, if I continue to do that, I think his IEP needs will get met. The moment I get frustrated, it's okay to get frustrated, but the moment I get frustrated and let go, then there's going to be a problem.
Right.
So as long as I stay there in that core, he'll be fine.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yvonne, we see your comment. Thank you for your comment. It is really hard for some kids to adjust to the change. Turquoise, yes, you are correct. Some people do love virtual. I've heard from many parents that they do like, the opportunity to actually see what their children are doing. I can observe, I can hear, what's going on in the classroom. So you're right. It's not bad for everybody. So we don't want to give that impression either that, that everyone finds it difficult, because there are some people who are enjoying this virtual learning experience. LaShawn, she said, I find it difficult for students to receive the special education services that they need during COVID. Yeah, we have heard many people express that same concern. And God has blessed us to find out the strengths we thought we never had, and the abilities to connect the dots for our children. I'm sure you never thought that you had what it took at some point, Takara, right? But you're like, like, where does this has come from, right? And then Yvonne also said they do well trying to adjust, but for the kids who have parents that can't keep up. Okay. She said, my grandson has an IEP and suffers with epilepsy, and they have damaged his language. Being sure he gets all the education that is best for him is scary. Yeah, it can be fearful. And like you said, you even had to cry at first at just the daunting, reality of what was ahead, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want you, in a previous conversation, you shared with me something about Kyron having a meltdown. And so tell us a little bit about that, because I think you said that it had been a couple of years since that occurred.
Yes. I
So,
haven't seen a meltdown with Kyron in probably 5 years.
Okay.
At least 5 years. So,
okay, so hold on, Takara. So when you say a meltdown, explain what that is first. Okay.
The way Kyron's meltdowns look is he hits himself. He'll start to hit himself, and then he starts to kick. He starts to scream. He hits the floor, and he wants to hit something or someone, but he doesn't. And he hits the floor. He pounds himself. He fights, and then he just screams and he screams and he screams, and then he balls up into a knot, and then it just goes from there. So that's basically his meltdown. His meltdown.
Okay, so that's his meltdown. He had not had a meltdown in about 5 years prior to COVID. Okay.
Yes.
How many meltdowns has he had since COVID not being able to go to school?
Probably about 7.
Wow.
And when I say 7, I'm saying you have to think about how long his tantrums last or his meltdowns last. Once he gets into a meltdown, they're gonna last for hours. So they're memorable. He's had 7, but they are to remember. You won't forget them after he has them.
Wow. Have they happened during times he's supposed to be in school, or does it? Okay.
Because we have to stop him going out the door to go to the bus. So we're going here, and there's no bus outside. Just trying to get him to understand he won't be getting on the bus for a long time. You don't need to get dressed and get your book back, Kyron. You won't be getting on the bus. Meltdown right there at the door, and that meltdown is going to be pretty much most of the day. Trying to redirect him. This isn't how it's going to go, Kyron. And then it just kind of where's my routine? I think that's what he's saying. Where's my routine, and when did you guys change it?
Wow.
Put it back.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So you touched on that, which I think is very important. So that just shows that's his coping mechanism and his way to express the state of confusion and I would even dare say frustration that he's experiencing. Okay, so considering that, tell us how are you dealing, you and your children, because you have 5 other children. Okay, so how are you dealing with the impact of this transition with Kyron now being home, and you have to educate him at home while you are also working full time from home? So how do you deal with that practically, right? So like, what practical things have you done? And then I want you to talk about how you're dealing with that from a mental health perspective. So dealing with this change with Kyron being home and you working full time from home. So what practical things have you done? And then what are some strategies that you use from a mental health perspective?
Okay. So basically, yes, I am working full time. And then I had to be, this is where the transparencies come in with work as well. As a therapist, I know that we need to maintain, there's a professionalism there. You have to be careful with what you share. And even as a therapist, that comes true too. We want to always have the proper face in the public. But when this happened, hey, I'm working full time, but I also have a son with autism. Here's how my day is going to need to go. And how can you accommodate me? And, I've been hearing that the accommodating side of different jobs have been very, very accepting and understanding. So I had to really, swallow some pride there, Deanne, and tell people this is what's going on. So I had to start there. My job is not going to look the same now. My hours are going to be a bit sporadic, and here's what I need to do. And that went well. And how I dealt with Kyron's side of it, with my children, like you said, I have 5 other children, just kind of stepping back, and when I said I had that good cry, I had that cry because I knew that I had to stand up and reposition myself, and it was going to take work. You know what? To be honest, I didn't feel like it. I liked it it was.
Right.
I guess I had my own mini tantrum. But what I did, I sat down with my children. All of them are adults. Kyron is the youngest. And just asked them, I don't want you all to take over, but wherever you can assist, please do that. and they've been amazing, you know, with
Yeah.
mom, I'll take them for an hour, or mom, go take a nap, or, you know, and my husband as well, you know, just working together and just repositioning things. And mentally just digesting, owning that this is my situation, which is sometimes
Mhm.
hard, you know, owning that I can be human, you
Yeah.
know, owning that I can be angry, you know, I can feel each of these emotions and unpack them one by one.
Yeah.
Did that, it was really, really helpful. You know, as women, you know, or as parents, sometimes we're super women. So
Yeah.
we don't want to say that it's too much. We don't want to say that it's overwhelming, because we have to have the solution. We're the
Yeah.
solution. We fix it,
Mhm.
you know, but saying, you know what, I can't fix it right now. You know, I can't, my cape is not on today. I can't fly, you know, and
Mhm.
accepting that, taking your moment, and then getting into self-care, you know, sitting in your moment for a little while,
Yeah.
alone for at least 5 minutes to yourself, and just knowing, yeah, you got to go back out there and fight, and no, it's not fixed, but you still have to go back out and fight, but you got to take care of you first. So
Right.
once I started doing those things, I was able to find myself in all of this, in the rubbish. I was able
Mhm.
to find myself and kind of make sense of everything.
Okay, good, good. So, some practical things, if I heard correctly, is one, especially working from home, you just had to be transparent.
Yeah.
You know, have been used to kind of keeping, you know how we do. You know, what's in the house, stay in the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with, and we're not going to tell anybody else. But you just had to open up and be transparent and say, you know what, we're gonna have to adjust some schedules, adjust some things, adjust some meeting times, just make some changes, because of the needs and concerns of Kyron. So that's good. Sometimes it's hard. We wear the mask, right?
Absolutely.
We wear the mask, so that's good to be transparent. And then you said that you included the family, the entire family, and you just said, hey, I need some help. I just need some assistance. So, and you said they were, they stepped up and they've been great. So that's wonderful, that you have that support system. And your husband, we don't want to leave your husband out of it, right? So your husband as well. And then from a mental health perspective, you said feel your emotions. I think that's important. You have to just feel what you feel. And I think that's also plays a role with the transparency, right? You're just being honest with yourself about how you feel. So when people say, hey girl, how you doing? We usually say good, but that's not always the truth, right? That's just kind of like the reflex response. But sometimes you have to say, I really don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could tell you, or maybe not the best. Sometimes we just have to be open and honest with our emotions. You said accepting that this is what we're dealing with right now. This is the reality that we're in. And then in self-care. So I think those are very important. Some people throw that self-care term around. So I do want to just kind of follow up with you on that. So what does self-care look like for you? You said sometime taking some time alone, but
Yes.
what would you describe that? How does that look? Even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes?
Yes. So sometimes I can't stop the chaos around me, but I can mentally stop that chaos by just closing my eyes and just taking a moment to just sit with myself. And I used to think, you got to plan this big trip. You got to,
Mm-hmm.
the bells and the whistles, you got to wait till Friday,
Right.
That's when all your time is going to be great. And,
Right.
and then I learned, no, self-care for me needs to happen every day,
Right.
because my life is like this every day. So
Mm-hmm.
I've learned, oh, so 5 minutes is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned how if a lot of people can't hold their breath past 1 minute.
Yeah.
That tells you how important 1 minute is and how your mind can reset itself. So
Mm-hmm.
for me is definitely just stepping away from a situation that maybe hasn't quite resolved itself.
Mm-hmm.
Learning to take care of me in the situation,
Mm-hmm.
that makes it easier to get through the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're saying is true, because just ask an audience just to be silent for a minute.
Mhm.
it is so deafening.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
It's like people can't. It's just that they can't take it, just
Yeah.
being in absolute silence for a minute. So that is so true. So Takara, you we talked about you made it to this school, that you really enjoy. So tell, but that wasn't always the case. So and again, we may not even have time to really go into how long it took you to find the particular school that you are in right now with your son. What are some questions, or what are some things that our parents who have children with special needs, or with autism specifically, what are some things that they should be looking for right now, or questions that they should be asking their school as it relates to their children?
Oh, number one, what is that looking like? I want to start with the IEP, because the IEP drives the education for the child.
Right.
So in my call, once March 13th happened and I was able to kind of adjust myself and jump back in, which is about 2 weeks later, okay, what is this IEP going to look like now? Because it's definitely not going to look like what it looked like before on campus. So I think parents should be asking those questions.
Okay.
While we do this, what is going to be what supplements do I need, and
Mhm.
what support do I need to make sure that my baby gets what he needs, or he or she needs. So
Right.
those are my first questions, because I know if you don't have an IEP, you don't have, with a special needs child, if you don't have an IEP, there's no point, as far as education. So I started there.
Okay.
And I wanted to sit, whether it's on Zoom or in person, however they wanted to do it, and know exactly what my positioning was going to be while we
Okay.
were in this pandemic, because I wasn't
Okay.
sure. I didn't know what to do.
Okay.
So basically, that's some of the questions you need to ask. And then from
Mhm.
there, everything else will fall in place with what you need to do from there.
Right. Yeah. That is so important, because the IEP process is not created equal, right, across the board. Okay. I have seen, I've seen some foolishness when it comes to IEPs and things that have been the way they have been conducted, or things that have been recommended in some settings, which can be upsetting to those who know that process and how it is supposed to be applicable to children. So you are absolutely correct. Parents need to, or your suggestion is that parents get involved with that IEP process, ask questions about it, and insist on being a part of that meeting. Yvonne Brace Yvonne Brace says, "Speak, yes, foolishness." Yeah, so we know all too well, some of us, about that process, and it can be scary. And so, tell us about your son's school. You know, tell us about, you shared earlier, how he enjoys the learning and the process. So what drew you to that learning environment over other environments that he had been in previously?
It's really searching for a school. We lived in Illinois for a bit, and he was in a school where all of the children had autism. And I loved the curriculum because it was just for them. And when we moved back to Michigan, that was what I wanted to do, figure out how can I get him in a school that will support the same. But what you have to do is you have to start in your district first.
Mm-hmm.
The district can't apply or doesn't apply what's needed in the IEP, only then is he able to go outside of that district and explore. Well, I didn't know that at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
it was really a struggle trying to figure out what he needed, what can he do, because they didn't have the tools for Kyron there. But
Okay.
of course, behaviorally, he has to prove that to the school before they will say, okay, he can go somewhere else. But
Okay.
then time came. And so now he's at Berger Baylor, and the entire school, every student there has autism and is on the spectrum in some way. And that's where Kyron came to life as far as education. I saw the light come on. I saw, I like to read. He communicates with body language because he's nonverbal.
Okay.
So I have to do a lot of reading with with his body language and his behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying to me, okay, mom, okay, this is it. This is the place.
Mm-hmm.
Run out the door to get on the bus and, walk a little slowly to get back home,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying I knew that was a place for him. And
Okay.
very excited about what they're doing there and happy that we finally, like you said, finally landed into a space. No tantrums, no temper tantrums, no biting or hitting. He was doing things at the previous schools.
Yeah. So there may be, some members of the audience or someone who is viewing who they're struggling because, hey, we're in this pandemic, right? It's different all over the country. So I don't know where everyone may be joining us from, because there are some districts that are fully back in school. I mean, the children are fully in-person instruction, in-person instruction, and then you have some that are using hybrid models and things of that nature. We know that in a lot of districts, especially in a lot of urban districts, they don't have a lot of they don't have schools that may be dedicated to students who have autism. They may have an autism program or a classroom or someone who pushes in, into a classroom. So again, it's not created equal. And then you have people who debate on both sides of that issue, right? About full inclusion or things of that nature. So if there's someone out there who, they're at a school where they don't feel that their child is receiving what they need, and they don't have the resources to get them to a different school, what can you say to those people to encourage them, or what type of tips, if any, do you have for them if they're in that situation where they don't have the ability to drive them somewhere, or there isn't a bus that can come take them to a better school environment? I hope that's not too tough of a question.
Exactly. I've learned that there's no better advocate for your child than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to work harder for your child than you do. And the way that you approach is how everybody else is going to approach your child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've learned. And the advocacy there is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So the question that always stays in my mind, and that's even now, although we're very excited where he is now, is, are his needs being met? I always ask those questions because I'm allowed to go through my own checklist and see, is he getting everything that he needs? So if you're in a school and the child is not getting their needs met, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
You have to be the advocate, like parents, that's us, and say, hey, this is not being addressed. And before I sign on a dotted line for what he's for his IEP, for example, before I sign this, his needs are not being addressed.
Right.
If you say he has to have this in the curriculum, then where is that curriculum?
Right.
Be asking those questions, because that's how Kyron got to Berger Baylor. Asking questions. Okay, well, where is this? Or how is he supposed to get this met? And it's okay, you know what? Miss Montgomery is asking a lot of questions. Now we need to investigate and see what he needs.
Right.
Pushes them forward. And it's not saying that they're not doing their job. It's just saying that they have a lot of children to deal with. Put yourself on that radar. And once you do that makes them come to life. And then they explore, you know what, we don't have that. You know what, we don't have those support in place. Let's see how we can help your child.
Right.
And that's how your child will get to where they need to be and get those needs met.
Yeah. You know what? And be persistent. Right. Do not allow, if your child has a diagnosis, a special needs diagnosis, do not allow that school to tell you what they cannot do. You know what I mean? You have to know what your rights are under IDA. Turquoise Brown, yeah, I think when you say really, I think you were referring to some schools being fully open. Yes, there are many schools around many school districts around the country that are fully in person, or at least offering that fully in person option. And then she said, that's why I love virtual. Yes, and I think you were saying that, Turquoise, about being able to see what is going on. So I can definitely understand that perspective. And then about fighting and advocating for your children. Ann Williams said, absolutely. And Yvonne Bray said, that's right. Speak up and be the kid's voice. I like how you spoke on that. Not telling how to do their job, but what the kids need. Yeah. And then Ann says, we are the voice for our children. Yes, absolutely correct. LaShawn Hawkins says, persistence is the key. Absolutely correct. Yes, persistence is the key. You're right. And I just want to circle back to Yvonne's comment, not telling, yes. So it's not about telling the experts, right, how to do their job. No, that's not the case. We know that you have the degrees. We know that you went to school. We know all of that. And we honor that. But at the same time, you know your child. Okay, you are your child's first teacher. You as the parent, you are your child's first teacher, and you are with that child the other hours of the day. And so you know what it is that your child needs, parents, grandparents, aunts, whoever is on this call. So you know what your child needs. So you have to be that voice and advocate for your child, and reach out for assistance or partners if you need support systems, which is what we're going to go into next. What were some supports, Takara? What were some resources? We're in Michigan. So what were some supports or some resources that you received or were able to reach out to provide you with the assistance that you needed, that could help answer some questions that you may have had, or help with the advocacy that you were seeking?
Some people think this is corny, but groups, support groups, are very, very helpful. I have some really close friends that I met 5 years ago. Someone said, have you decided, thought about joining a group? And I'm thinking to myself, and I don't know, maybe because I'm a therapist, I don't know. And I said, no, I haven't joined a group. I haven't joined anything like that. I don't think I would need anything like that. So she says, well, why don't you come with me and my husband, to the next one? You don't have to join or anything like that, but why don't you come with us to the next one? 5 years ago. And we're really close friends. And what I learned was all of us had children with autism. Every one of us. So no better conversation could be had than a group of parents who had the same struggles. And as the light came on, hello, they understood me not getting any sleep. They understood people not understanding. They understood that people were staring. They understood that people were rude. They understood that my child was invisible to some people. They just understood where no one else could. And it was so refreshing. So from there, a lot of my resources were born, because I have resources for them. Hey, try early on. Hey, go to Autism Speaks. Hey, here's some things you can do at Wayne Risa. There's some classes there. And in exchange, you'll be surprised of all of the resources that these parents have to provide to you. It's like a network exchange.
Yeah.
And you find out what is needed. But I started at Autism Speak, which is nationwide. And I chose Michigan and found the groups, and we're very close. And even now, they're telling me what I need to do, here's some resources. Here, you need to call them. Here, did you know this about Kyron? He's still down. This, so definitely start with groups. They are very, very helpful and therapeutic.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Again, I think some people, we tend to isolate. And really, when you have situations like this, is not the time to to hide, even though sometimes I understand, like you said, somebody's staring or don't understand why is the child doing this, or why are they looking like this with a blank stare, or why they're not saying anything. People can be so ignorant, for lack of a better word, sometimes. And I'm not saying that in a demeaning, derogatory way. I'm just saying a lack of knowledge, ignorant, right? But having a support system is so very important. Having some other people that you can share your stories with and bounce ideas off of. So I think that's very good, very important. Is there anything else that you want to share? We still have a few more minutes, and those of you who have questions, who want to ask Takara anything specifically that we did not cover, or ask her anything about Kyron, you can definitely do so and add those questions or comments in the chat. Yvonne Bray said the DHS, the Department of Human Services, has lots of information for kids with special needs, and the schools here and doctors' offices as well. Yvonne, can you share with us where it is that you're from? Are you from Michigan as well, or are you from a state outside of Michigan? You're absolutely correct. Sometimes the DHS offices oh, she's from Pennsylvania. Okay. And sometimes doctors' offices provide those supports as well. So you mentioned early on. So people who there may be some individuals who are not familiar with early on. So can you just share just a little bit about early on? Because there may be someone who has a child who needs to seek that type of service right now.
Sure. So early on, and I'm sure this is nationwide as well. So early on, basically what they do is, once you have an idea or think your child has a special needs delay or any autism, whatever that delay is, you early on comes in and provides, number one, parental support, letting you know, I hear what you're saying, I understand, come here with us, we're going to help you. So just to hear that as a parent takes your guard down just so far, okay, you're going to help me. Awesome. 80%. Now you're going to be like, prove it, right? Okay, that they'll help me. And this is what early on does. They walk you through the process, and they keep you in the process, and they support you. We understand. And I think that's what a lot of us parents just need to hear. We understand what you're going through, and here is how we're going to help you. So they walked me through, okay, you need to get him an MRI. Here's what you need to get next. Okay, you need to make sure that it's not this. We got to do some ruling out processes. Letting me know that it's going to take a while, because sometimes with parents, we're like, we thought you said it's going to be done in a week. No, they let us know, hey, this is going to be a process. We'll diagnose. We'll figure out what's going on. And just walking me through it, and with those supports. And early on, had him diagnosed, I want to say in about 5 months, with autism. And then from there, after the diagnoses, what do we need to do? We need to provide you with what you need. So here's which hospital he needs to go to, and things of that nature. So
okay, awesome.
I had a question, which is
sure, Kathy.
It's kind of like a basic question, but it's what's emerging for me as you're talking. This is such a great conversation. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to you, and I learned a lot. And my question is, how do you think and feel about the similarities and differences of parenting your child with autism, of parenting Kyra, versus your other 4 children?
That's a really good question. And, I think that I'm way more, one of the similarities is the nurturing is always there, right? You're always going to make sure, that, like, my oldest child is 26. She's still my cuddly baby in my mind, right? And then Kyron has now the extra layers. I mean, he's 13. My husband still carries him around the house, so some of these things we need to stop. We know that. But I think those are the difference. And I think the word special needs is, some people finds it derogatory, but I think special needs is exactly that. And in our home, that's what it is as well. We know that Kyron needs that extra love, we know when he calls, we're coming, and my son will drive all the way from school. What's going on with Kyron? He'll drive all the way from school just to make sure, Kyron, I'm here. You see me? This is your brother, They don't do that for each other. They're like, you'll be fine. I'll see, get over it, but Kyron is always getting that extra layer, the extra cushion, and he knows it. That's the thing too. He knows that when we call, he has a different type of call, and for
Yeah.
we're on the way. So I think he knows that, and he gets that extra layer of love just because of the autism. We want to make sure that he knows we see you. You're not invisible. We care about you. We love you, and we want you to know we're here for you. So he gets the extra layer for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You're right. Back when I was in college and preparing for education, I think the term was exceptional child. I think they were trying to get away from it. It's always a trend or, something. But your Kyron is special. Right, he's special, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. We shouldn't allow other people to project their negative connotations or negative beliefs onto our children and into our reality. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. So thank you so much, Takara. I love talking to you. I love talking about this subject. I love hearing about Kyron. And you look good, girl. You that's self-care going on. So you really do take care of yourself. It's so important. And I can only imagine that these type of conversations are helpful for you too.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. So just
Yeah.
looking at everybody and it's very refreshing. It's like a burst of citrus, I would call it that.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Alexa says she loved those earrings. She said and the hair wrap too. Looking good. Kathy, we're all set.
Okay, Andrew, can you launch the poll and get the PowerPoint back up? And I'll close us out with a huge thank you to Deanne and Takara.
So much.
Love the conversation. And we have to do it again sometime. I want to just welcome everybody to tomorrow and the next day and the day after that as well. Please join us again tomorrow. Ahmad Abujradeh will be back with Healing Relationships, Peer Support for Well-Being. So it's how do we do healing relationships, or how do relationships heal? On Wednesday, Bob and I are going to hold space for a conversation picking up on last week on successful grandparenting, where we got some questions from last week's webinar, and we're going to answer them together. So it'll be another conversational one. Thursday, Tracy Kirchman's back, and she is going to do a class on art for everyone. She's a teacher, and she's doing a pod, and she's going to hopefully be creating with the kids, and also showing us all how to create art with kids. So that's going to be a fun one. I won't be here for that one, but I encourage you all to come. And then on Friday, Alexandra James and I are going to have a conversation about children's challenging behavior and the 5 love languages. And if you want to come to that one, you need to go online and fill out the quiz and find out what your love language is, and think about what your children's love language is, because again, it's going to be very interactive. And then Friday, Christina Alcantar will be back with the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Our Own Voice.
Kathy, that's Monday. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't say Monday?
Oh, I said Friday. Sorry.
Oh, so Friday is, well, I'm reading the thing, so reading it wrong. But next week, Christina will be back with NAMI in Our Own Voice. And that was I really enjoyed that. It's a repeat of the one she did last week, which is really about stigma and people talking about their mental illness and their journeys. So it's really very powerful. So anyway, we've got a lot of good content. Encourage you to come, encourage you to share. We're trying to build the world we want to live in. So what do you want to amplify coming out of this webinar? I mean, I really like the answer to my my question. So I'm going to say I would amplify hashtag more love.
Mhm.
And hashtag everyone has special needs, right? In some way,
Right. Yes.
special needs.
Yes.
Yes.
And just like, you know, being aware of them. I mean, I was just extrapolating and being aware of them and then advocating for your child's needs and asking the question of professionals, you know, okay, you're doing your job, but what about this? What about
Mhm.
setting this?
Yes.
So
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here. If any of you in the audience would like to have a conversation or host a conversation or share a webinar, please contact me and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you so
All right.
much. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.